welcome to Reading with Eve, and let's get on with another video. Notice how I didn't say a bookish video? Well, that's because today we're not talking about books. We are talking about horror movies. More specifically, I will give you 35 horror subgenres, and I will tell you my favorite movie from each of them. As this is probably going to be a long, without any further ado, let's dive into the movies. So the first subgenre, as I just went on nofilmschool.com horror subgenres. So they have like broken down some subgenres into like tinier subgenres. Try saying that 3 times fast. So the first one is psychological, and we have phobia first. So I will be a bit maybe controversial because a lot of people would class this movie in another category, but I will put Jaws by Steven Spielberg here for a psychological phobia horror movie. I think everyone knows what Jaws is about. It's about a killer shark that terrorizes a small town, and then a few men sail out into the open water in their boat to try to capture the beast. And for me personally, it's not a creature feature in a traditional sense because we barely see the shark for most of the movie, and a lot of the tension is created by observing the people, observing the water. It is definitely a phobia of something being in the water that's out to get you, and I feel like that matches the criteria more than saying, oh, it's just a shark movie. You know what I mean? So I will put that one for this subgenre. For madness subgenre, it's gonna get really tiring to say that, is none other than The Shining by Stanley Kubrick, starring Jack Nicholson and the late Shelley Duvall. I feel like everyone knows what this one is about. I just know that it's very controversial even to this day because for a lot of people, they say that the movie's crap and then the book's better. I've spoken about it before. I choose to see both Shining the movie and Shining the book as 2 different entities sharing the same concept. Because, yeah, the Shining movie is not a good adaptation, but it is a fantastic movie. It is one of the few movies that generally unsettles me, and I love rewatching it and still feeling creeped out every time. It has so much to offer. And it definitely fits with the whole madness aspect since we go from 0 to 100 a real quick. Well, maybe not quick, but like we go there steadily and with force. So yeah, I mean, if somehow you haven't seen it yet, I would definitely recommend. Now for a home invasion, this one might be a bit of an undercut. I don't know, underrated, however you want to call it. I don't think many people have heard of it, but it is actually Fear, made in 1996. It stars Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon, both in their career, like early stages of their career, is what I meant to say. And a fun fact is that the actual home invasion part of the movie doesn't happen till the last quarter, the last fifth maybe, but everything that is happening is building up to it. It is showing us this segregated house that the main family live in. It's showing how difficult it is to get there. It is showing what leads to that, the family's dynamics and whatnot, because we have to care for these characters to want them to make it out. So I thought that it was interesting to establish their dynamics. One thing I will say, and one thing that definitely stops me from rewatching it often, or I at least skip over that, there is a dog death in this movie that is it is graphic in a sense that the aftermath is graphic. But it definitely causes very strong emotions, which I guess is what they were going for, but I know because of that it won't be forever. Then I have the last category of a psychological, like, subcategory during how many times I say the word category in this video. But I have art house. It says also known as elevated horror. Art house horror focuses on psychological themes and atmosphere. They have a distinct cinematic style that may delve into psychological ideas that challenge the viewer's beliefs. So think pretentious people movies. No, I mean, I'm only half joking. I think that some of them can be a bit pretentious for the sake of being pretentious. But I just double checked which films I've seen are under that category to be sure, and I can say that my favorite is easily The Black Swan, starring Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis. It is about Nina, who she wants to be the lead in the Swan Lake adaptation of her ballet theater, but her coach, he tells her that she doesn't have what it takes to be the Black Swan. She's only good as the White Swan, and this kind of causes everything that she's worked for to kind of spiral, and she just goes into this rabbit hole of unhingedness and crazy behavior and all that. I thought it was a brilliant movie, honestly, and I do love anything ballet related. I myself do this like adult fitness type, so obviously I'm no ballerina, but like we do ballet movements to increase our grace and flexibility and stuff like that. So it's really something that I enjoy watching and doing and whatnot. So I loved that as well, and the performances were great, and it definitely has that whole what the fuck is going on type of vibe. So I do think that you have to, it's one of those movies where you have to pay attention to understand what's happening, and I do think that's what they mean when they say elevated horror. Like, you have to think a little bit when you watch it. And then we have the second like subcategory called killer, and then the mini categories in there are slasher. I've actually already made a video talking about my 13 favorite slasher movies. I'm probably going to make videos for other subcategories at some point as well. This is still mainly a book channel, but occasionally I will throw a movie video here and there. And I've already spoken about my favorite one there, which is Halloween, and I have explained why I love it so much, so I won't repeat myself here because we still have a lot of categories to get through. But yeah, if you want more details, it will be there. Just a bit of a disclaimer. I was having a bit of audio problems with the video, so there's like a teensy little like echo there that I tried to fix as much as I could, so just be aware of that. Sorry about that. I didn't realize until after it was edited. But yeah, hope that it doesn't ruin the experience. So just before. Then we have Crime and Galio, which says focus on elements from other genres like slashers, crime fiction, psychological thriller, horror, exploitation, supernatural. So I would say that my favorite that falls under this category is Last Night in Soho, directed by Edgar Wright, starring Anna Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith. It features this girl, Elle, I think, who he has lots of nostalgia for the decade that she wasn't even alive during. She wants to live in the 60s, and she goes to uni, but she doesn't fit in, so she moves out of the halls like the same night, and she gets this house, like not a whole house to rent, but like an attic of sorts. And she starts seeing these visions of this girl who lived in the 60s, who got more than she bargained for, and she starts experiencing things that are happening to this girl in real life, and it gets really creepy. So yeah, I know that it received a lot of mixed reviews, this movie, but I really enjoyed it. I do agree that it fell apart a little bit in the final third, just a little bit, like it wasn't a perfect movie by any means, but I still had a great time watching it, and I would definitely see it again. So if you're looking for something that meets this requirement, I would definitely recommend. Is my favorite of these? Let's have a quick look, because sometimes I just need to be jolted back as to exactly what I've watched, if that makes any sense. Okay, so I would say that my favorite is probably going to be, I know that it is very predictable, but it probably has to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just a classic, and you can't go wrong with that. I don't know if I even need to explain it, but a group of people go across Texas and they get run down, I guess, and then they're targeted by this family of cannibalistic killers. So yeah, sounds like Texas, to be fair. Not that I've ever been, but it doesn't sound very appealing, if I'm honest. If anyone I know is in Texas who is proud to be there and who wants to recommend me somewhere to visit if I ever go to the US, let me know. But yeah, it is definitely like my favorite if I had to pick one for this genre. Then we have gore, and although I am a horror girly, I'm not a gore girly, if you know what I mean. So these ones will be a bit tricky, but let's see where this takes us. Torture. Also known as torture porn, the subgenre depicts bouts of extreme violence. Oh, I mean, could have figured that out. I mean, I don't really watch these sort of things, but I have seen them, so for the sake of this video, I will pick the one that I like the most. I would say if I had to pick, it would probably be Saw 2. I know. Why not Saw 1? That's because I genuinely think that the first Saw is like a good horror movie in its own right. It's not torture porn. The second one is where it starts going into that category. So I feel like that's more there, and it makes sense for me to put it there and say it's my favorite, because I genuinely enjoyed the second Saw. I think afterwards is where it started falling for me. But, I mean, that franchise is massive. So yeah, that would probably be my pick for this one. And I have body horror. Again, body horror is not exactly my thing. But if I had to pick, it would be The Autopsy of Jane Doe, because that movie is so much more than that, but the body horror that is portrayed in that movie, it is very visceral, and it actually made me feel really uncomfortable, which is not often that happens in the movie. I have a pretty strong stomach, while my partner is usually the one who's hiding behind his hands, like, this is disgusting, I could never be a surgeon, and I'm like, yep, yeah, this is fine. So yeah, a bit of a weird flex, but okay. So The Autopsy of Jane Doe, I think a lot of you guys probably would have heard of this one. It's about a father and son duo who work at a morgue, and this Jane Doe gets delivered to them. Jane Doe is when they don't know who this person is. They're without any ID. And as they start working on her, kind of starts becoming more alive. Yeah, it's very creepy. Like, I felt uncomfortable after finishing it. So yeah, I clearly want you to be uncomfortable. Then we have splatter, which again, I wouldn't say that it's a genre that I watch often, but just to be safe, I will see what my favorite one from there would be. And it's just giving me Saw and Hostel, but that is not accurate. There definitely has to be more. Just bear with me for a second. We'll get there. I'm gonna have to start taking more detailed notes, honestly, to save myself time. I wouldn't count that. No, count that. I feel like a lot of these, they don't actually think where to put them, if I'm honest. Splatterpunk. Maybe I don't have a favorite. No, but there has to be something. Well, for some reason they list Final Destination as splatterpunk, which I don't know if I'd agree with that. But for the sake of it, I think that, I mean, if it's listed on a couple of options, like, I think Screen Rant also made a list. I mean, how reliable are these lists, you know? But for the sake of it, let's just say Final Destination, the first one, is my favorite splatterpunk. To be fair, that bus scene, though, that is definitely something very extra. So, yeah, just for the sake of it. I mean, I love that movie. It's actually, like, my partner said, I kind of don't want to rewatch it because it actually scares me. He used to be anxious around planes, so I can understand that. But yeah, that is that. So then we have Cannibal, and some of the ones listed here I'm never gonna watch ever because I like to eat with my food, not watch people eat themselves. But I will put Wrong Turn, the first one, as my favorite cannibal movie. It has Desmond Henriksen and Eliza Dushku. I'm not pronouncing her name right, I'm so sorry. But yeah, it's again about a bit of backwoods horror as well. It's about a group of young adults who go on like this road trip sort of thing, and they get stranded in some mountains. I'm not good with the US geography, I've never been, okay? So they get targeted by this family of inbred cannibals who want to have them as their next nom nom. And yeah, it is quite gory. So it definitely fits. Then I have Extreme. Again, it literally says exploitation horror features scenes of extreme violence. I don't know. I feel like I just don't watch stuff like that. But out of the stuff I've seen, if I had to pick, I would probably pick the actual, like, torture part of I Spit on Your Grave. That movie, I don't know why my friends back then at school thought it was a good idea to watch that at 13, 14 years old. Beats me. But I feel like a lot of people have at least heard of it. It is about a woman who goes on this retreat, like cabin to write, and she gets assaulted by a group of men, and it's brutal and it's on screen and it's horrifying. But then we get to see her revenge, and there are two versions of this movie, one made in the 70s and a remake made in 2010. The remake is the one that I've watched, and I never want to watch it again. I think I'm actually going to make a video of films I'm never going to rewatch and why. But the second half, when she starts getting that revenge carried out, it was kind of glorious. I just didn't want to see the first half, but I understand I had to for the revenge to feel justified. But anyway, it is definitely not a genre that I watch often, if at all, so this one was hard to pick. Then I have Monster. So we're category 13 out of 35 now. I have zombies, and I think my favorite zombie movie is actually, I mean, I'm reserving one movie that features zombies for a different category, which I'm sure is going to pop up, but my favorite zombie movie, like a proper horror movie, is Dawn of the Dead, 2004. I know it's a remake, but I loved it. It features a group of people trapped in the mall during a zombie apocalypse, and that's all you need to know. I had a great time with it, and I've rewatched it multiple times, so yeah, that would be my pick. Then I have A Virus. For this one, I will pick one that was easily objectively the best movie of that sort that I've ever seen, but it was a hard watch, and that is Contagion, which features a global pandemic. I wonder why it was hard to watch, but that movie had me like, what? Like, half the time I was traumatized from how we lived through that stuff. Maybe not such extremes, but we did live through it to the T. And the other half was like, can't believe they actually did that. It was, yeah, I would say thinking about COVID and your experience in lockdown, especially if you were like in hospital ill with it and made it through, obviously, it's a hard watch, and it might not be for you, but I definitely think that it is worth your time if you can stomach. Then I have A Vampire, and for this one, well, I'll tell you what, it ain't gonna be Twilight, so relax. I still have my credibility here. As for what vampire movie though, I you know I feel like vampires were ruined by Twilight, so it's hard to think of good movies that feature them. Um, I might just go with, you know, as far as my favorite one goes, I might just go with a good old Interview with the Vampire, because I feel like it captures what a vampire aesthetic is without making it too cheesy or too erotic or whatever. So, yeah, I feel like everyone knows what this one is about, but it just follows one vampire sharing with the reporter the story of his and his partner's eternity together, sort of thing. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's all you need to know. It has Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise and Kirsten Dunst in one of her first roles, so yeah, definitely a classic. Werewolf. I mean, hell if I know. Can't think of any werewolf films, if I'm honest. Yeah, it's not really. There aren't many, really. I'm gonna need Google to help me. Werewolf horror movies. No, I haven't seen. I mean, just the fact that I'm struggling to think about it. Oh, I know. It's because I don't think of it as a werewolf movie primarily, but it is. So I'm gonna count, otherwise I have nothing. Ginger Snaps. Two sisters obsessed with death get attacked by a wolf one night, and one of the sisters starts turning into one. That's all you need to know. Again, it's so much more than just a werewolf movie because it's used as a metaphor for a lot of things. Just be aware there's, again, a bit of a gruesome animal imagery right in the very beginning. So maybe just like skip the first 2 minutes or something if you want to watch it, but definitely give it a go because it's amazing. Like, there's so much to say about it, but I'll digress because I'll probably talk about it in the future. I have classic and mythological, which doesn't help me much, if I'm honest. Just feel like it just has some kind of supernatural creature or like a ritual. I don't know. Let me see. But yeah, this list is not being very helpful in terms of that. So let's have a look quickly. Okay. I kind of see what they mean. That can't count, surely. Because I'm trying to think, like, in case I wanted to put this this movie in another category. Let me see. Again, you can tell what genres I don't watch that often because those are the ones that I struggle. Because other ones I could think of my favorite on the spot like that. You know, just boom. I know which favorite, like what favorite movie I have from that. Yeah, it's like, what qualifies as classic and mythological, you know? I don't really know. Yeah, it's kind of just putting all the creature features in. Just bear with me. Mm, yeah, I'm actually quite struggling with this one. I just don't think the description is very helpful. Yeah, it's very... Well, the description says, in the mythos of a culture, based on the legends we hear growing up that scared us. Okay, I might cheat here a little bit and say, since it says on like based on legends and stuff, use the movie Urban Legend, and it's made in 1998. It has Jared Leto, although I'm not sure that's a brag anymore, and it has Joshua Jackson. I'm pretty sure that's the name of the guy from who plays Pacey on Dawson's Creek. And a lot of other actors, and it follows this college campus where people start getting killed off in the matter of urban legends. And I actually, again, really enjoyed it. It's hard to find good college horror, I feel like. It's not very often. A lot of the time it's school or they're already adults. So I do feel like that was a really well done movie. Just be again aware there is a dog death in this movie as well. It's just horror for you, isn't it? That just, yeah. So yeah, that is my pick for that, just because I had to pick something. I have Neo Monsters, which describes everything else in the modern genre. All of strange, creative, and downright weird new monsters that don't have a home in the monster genre live in this subgenre. I mean, okay. Well, if we're going with that, then I will put Smile there. I feel like we all know what Smile is, because that whole franchise is now blowing up. But we're following this psychiatrist who witnesses someone commit suicide in front of them. And they basically start being haunted by this monstrosity. I mean, I'm probably not selling it very well, but you know what this movie is, right? So the first one is the one that I'm talking about. The second one I've seen also. I have my thoughts. But yeah, I would say that just, it's also like psychological and all that, but if we're going with this category, that entity is quite terrifying by how little we know about it, and how it always seems to be one step ahead of you. So I'm just going to put it into that category. Then we have nature horror, and natural forces at play in the form of animal or plant. Well, definitely not The Happening. I don't care if it's on that list. Let's have a look. I definitely know I've seen movies of that sort. It says it has to specifically be nature conditions. Okay. I will use this one just because I feel like it's the best fit. Frozen, and not the Disney one.
It's about 3 people who get stuck on a ski lift during a long weekend. And, well, you can imagine. So I do think that as far as nature horror goes, it's a good example, because there are some, like, threats, like wolves and stuff, but ultimately it is the cold and the unforgiving climate that is going to do them in faster than anything else. And they were idiots who thought they could get away with things and stuff. So, again, I'm not explaining it very well, probably, but... Then we have Small Creatures, which, to be fair,
I was gonna say, I don't really watch many creature features, but for the sake of this, I will say that Gremlins, the 1984 one, is my favorite, because I love that movie. It's a lot of fun, and I feel like everyone knows what this is about, so I won't go into detail, but yeah, I enjoy it, and yes, before you say anything, it is a Christmas movie, so I will be rewatching it. And for giant creatures, I actually have a movie that is very laughed at when it comes to cinema, but I find fun rewatching it, and that is the 1919 Godzilla featuring Matthew Broderick as the lead. It's just so cheesy and so fun. Like, I love it. I really enjoy it, and I know that it's not an objectively good movie, but it's fun. I mean, I would say the CGI is actually quite good considering what kind of stuff they come up with nowadays. So yeah, I had a blast with it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Then sci-fi and alien horror. Again, sci-fi is not a genre that I dip into that often. Again, I want to keep it real. I will probably just say the original Alien. It's genuinely creepy, genuinely scary. It has a good plot. But again, sci-fi is not a genre that I pick up often. So it doesn't have much competition. I'm not gonna lie. So take that how you will. But yeah, and paranormal category. We have now the mini category of ghosts and spirits, and this one, again, I've seen so many, but it's not my top trope, so I'm thinking like, what could I say? You know? Thoughts are doing their thing there in my head, thinking, gears turning. I might go with the Ghost Ship. If for nothing else, then that beginning scene had me, my jaw was flooring. It's about this group of people who are looking for gold, and they see this ship that's just been there drifting for God knows how long, and they decide to get on it and explore, and they start being haunted. It is, honestly, I love that movie. It's great. So yeah, that would be that category. And as I'm sure you're sick of me talking and talking and talking, I have 11 categories left. I know, still a fair few, but I'll try to, speed it up. We have a haunted house, which again, I feel like it's very, very standard trope, so I should definitely have a favorite. And I know I do, so just give me a second to bring it to my memory. You know what? I don't know if technically it can count it as a haunted house, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And it would be Sinister. Because that movie definitely creeped me out a lot. And it's about this guy who finds videotapes in the house that his family moved into, and those videotapes are basically snuff films, and they start seeing things and all that. Again, I know I'm probably not selling these fantastically, but I also feel like you probably know this movie. It's pretty well highly regarded in the horror community, so I'm probably not telling you anything that new here. Then we have Possession. Again, very straightforward. And I feel like a lot of it ties into religious horror, which is not my favorite as well. But to be fair, I do feel like a lot of these subgenres, they can be mixed together. And a lot of the time they are, which is why it can be so hard to pick something. But I will go with Christine, which is an adaptation by Stephen King about a killer car. Sounds cheesy, but I think that it was actually a pretty good one, and I enjoyed it, even though it's definitely an old one. Oh God, please don't tell me they're gonna remake it. They're gonna remake everything at some point, aren't they? Because screw having original content. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. Then we have Devils, Demons, and Hell. I mean, you know what? I know that technically it could be classed as a psychological horror film, but just because I can't think of anything else, I'm gonna say Rosemary's Baby. If you don't know, it's about a woman who moves into this apartment complex with her husband, and people there are weird, and then she gets pregnant, and her pregnancy is horrible, and her husband is being sketchy. So yeah, definitely a creep city, and it's a brilliant movie, very unsettling, and honestly, definitely not it's not a movie that I would rewatch often, if at all, because it is actually very uncomfortable, but I would definitely recommend. And if you know the twist, it's not even a twist though, really, like, it's very easy to pick up what's happening, which is not a bad thing. But yeah, it's the only movie I can think of that I actually loved that applies to this category. Then I have Witches, and this one's easy. My favorite horror movie about witches is The Craft, which features four girls in a very toxic friendship dynamic at this school where they try to get their wishes granted, and it goes horribly wrong. Again, this movie is so much more than that, but it's so 90s. The soundtrack, the clothing, the media that's referenced, it's of its time in the best way. And it actually explains like Wiccan stuff really well also, because they had an actual Wiccan as their consultant. So yeah, definitely, if you enjoy complicated female dynamics as well, I wanted to say pick this one up. It's not a book, but technically you could say that about a movie as well. So yeah, definitely pick this movie up and watch it and love it forever, because it's the best. Then we have Supernatural Power, and this one, again, I feel like it's quite a broad category, but I will just say, I'll make it easy for myself and be truthful, and I will say Carrie. The original one, of course. I mean, what? There was a remake? Oh, wait, there were two? Oh, wait, there's a third one being made? Oh, it's Mike Flanagan. Don't worry. It's gonna be great then. No, I'm not being ironic. I trust him. If there was anyone else, I would be writing to the network boycotting it already. Probably wouldn't, actually, but I would be strongly talking about doing that. But if anyone can do a good adaptation, Mike Flanagan can do it. However, I can still argue that it's not needed, but it's fine. So, yeah, I feel like you all know what Carrie's about. A repressed girl gets pushed too far by her school bullies, and, yeah, I mean, good for her. I fully support. I mean, I know it's not as, black and white as that, but as someone who didn't have a very great time at school, I can fully support what's happening there. So yeah, if somehow you haven't seen this one yet, please do watch it. Then it says miscellaneous categories for the last few, so we'll see. But we have a horror comedy, and actually two of my favorites are listed here as examples on this list. So you know what? I'm gonna use both. Because again, I can do what I want here, within reason. But I can't pick. So I will say that my two favorite horror comedies ever are Shaun of the Dead and Jennifer's Body. Classics, I know, but rightfully so. I love both of those movies so much for very different reasons. Jennifer's Body is an extremely mismarketed movie that is the most good for her thing ever. Megan Fox is amazing in it. Amanda Seyfried as well. And it is actually there's a lot to unpack in it, but I just thought that it was brilliant. And a lot of people think so too. And Shaun of the Dead is just probably the best horror comedy, like on an objective film writing level. It's such a masterful movie that was acted, and everyone who was in it acted like their bills were due. Like they needed to pay like a whole year's rent in advance. They were acting. I love it. It's a masterpiece. Then I have parody horror, which is not the same as comedy horror, because to parody, you have to basically look at someone else's story and make fun of it. In a flattering way, of course. So I would say this one is very easy for me. My favorite one is Scary Movie. I mean, I love it. It's amazing. The franchise as a whole, not so much, but the first one and the second one, I think they're fantastic, and they make me laugh every time, and they're just so much fun. I find myself quoting that movie at least weekly. Then the last few categories, I have Lovecraftian and cosmic horror, which again is not something I watch often, but for the sake of it, the one that I've seen that applies that I liked the most is The Mist, which I feel like saying that probably spoils a lot of stuff, but you know, the movie where they get trapped in the mall and there's mist all around and they start getting killed off by like these weird creatures. Yeah, that would be the one. Because like, I wouldn't say it's like my favorite film of all time, but it's my favorite out of the subgenre. Then we have gothic horror, which I was gonna say I definitely have some favorites in this category. So just bear with me quickly. We can do this. We're nearly there. We can do this together. It is saying that Dracula is actually a gothic horror, which it makes sense. Although I know I said that Interview with the Vampire is my favorite vampire movie, but Dracula I feel like is more than just vampirism. It captures that gothic atmosphere really well. So, for the sake of it, because like I don't watch gothic horror that often, and a lot of the time it can be like a bit of a hit or miss. So I will put Dracula there, just for the sake of it, because I really enjoyed that movie. And then the last few categories are found footage. I can't watch them often because they give me a headache, depending on how shaky they are. But when I do, I really enjoy them. And my favorite, by the way, I'm speaking choppily because I'm trying to remember, but I would say my favorite would, just looking at the list, you can't really go against the classic, can you? Or can you? I'm now having a Sophie's Choice on camera. You know what? I might just piss people off and say that my favorite found footage movie is Unfriended. And it's about a group of friends who get haunted by a ghost of their former friend who committed suicide. And they get haunted through a computer, so it's set entirely on a computer screen. And it received a lot of mixed reviews from people, but I personally loved it. There's nothing I enjoy more in fiction than people being horrible to each other and then getting their comeuppance for their actions, and this movie gives you just that. It's exactly that. It's amazing. People are monsters sometimes. This movie really shows that, which is interesting because it's meant to be about a ghost haunting thing, but you get my point. So yeah, I will say that. It's my favorite. And then folk horror, second to last category. I've not seen as much folk horror as I would like because I do really enjoy the whole aspect of it, but again, using assistance just to remind myself what I've seen. Out of what I've seen, I think it has to be Midsummer, which again, I think all of you know Midsummer. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with that just because out of what I've seen of folk horror was definitely the one that left me with like the biggest impression. And then the last one is post-apocalyptic, which I feel like it can be zombies, but it doesn't have to be zombies. And I would say that for like a post-apocalyptic horror, because disaster movies are a whole other thing here. So post-apocalyptic horror, for that, I would actually pick I Am Legend. Because it's a brilliant movie. So sad, so tense, so a lot of things, but a bad movie, it's not one of them. So yeah, that is it. Horror movies in different subgenres, and this is by no means my extensive list of my favorite movies ever. It's just really digging into like my favorite in that subgenre. But Will I make videos for all of these one day? I already have one for slasher. Maybe one day I'll make more for, I don't know, themed lists, but for movies. I don't know, we'll see. I know for some reason YouTube really doesn't like when you mix books and movies, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because I don't care. But yeah, if you like this video, if you've seen any of them, please do comment. I would love to have you here. Maybe, hit that subscribe button, because it would be fun to know that you're enjoying my content. And I hope to see you next time.